What's up, you guys, and welcome back to the Renaissance Room podcast. And in today's episode, we're going to just be talking about the rise of culture and TikTok. First of all, I really hate TikTok. Like, I be on TikTok, I can't cap. Like, I can't sit here and be like, oh, I hate TikTok. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just be a total TikTok stan, but then be on TikTok every day. I hate TikTok because I always felt like when it came to TikTok, it did nothing but continue to divide these racial tensions. And I'm really happy because I'm seeing a lot of Black people wake up, and a lot of Black people are, addressing a lot of things that need to be addressed in regards to racism. I think that TikTok just kind of further permeated this way for like Black people to kind of be under a microscope, under the white gaze. And I think that further instilled envy in white people. And so, before, back in the day, everything that we were seen as ghetto, right? I talk about this all the time, how certain customs you couldn't get unless you was pulling up to the hood, unless you was living in the hood. And now white people are able to kind of peer into that and capitalize off of that. And our people are still deprived. I think another thing I don't really care too much about, a lot of platforms that try to talk about like wealth building for Black people, is that it's so much gatekeeping. It's like, listen, people make it to a certain point and just, I don't know. Like people be like, oh, you forgot where you came from. Like, and it really do be that, because it's like, who are you speaking to? Who are you helping? Like, Deshaun is 26 in the hood. He don't even understand half the terms you're using, and that's his fault? Did you forget? You know what I mean? It's like people get on these platforms and it's like they want to be like, yeah, you capitalize off of assets and, that's how you do that. You take this and you do. Like, shut up. Because, like, who are you helping? And I'm not saying, like, don't meet people where they're at. I'm just saying that I just kind of feel like when so many people try to, it's like, have a platform and they want to talk about, like, just, I don't know. Like, I don't be knowing what the motive is, to be honest. I really don't be knowing what the motive is. Like, I'm never saying, sit in this space of lack and scarcity. And I'm never saying make yourself a victim, like, it's not about that. I just think that so many people just, I don't know what it be like. And I think for me personally, if you do your thing, you do your thing, and you say you do your thing, but don't sit here and try to talk about community and try to pull back to community, when you're not really helping people. I think it's so easy to tell a person, oh, you just need to get out of your environment. It's so easy to tell a person to get out. Like, trust me, I know, like, I've been, even still in my life, fighting through certain environmental factors. But I think about people who don't even have the resources that I have to get out of that. And so I just think it's really bold to jump on a podcast and start talking about things and sharing things, all in the name of helping Black people or helping people in general, right? What y'all got to understand is that even Black people will use Black influence for personal gain, and it's not really to give back. And we've seen this with the whole like Black Lives Matter movement. First of all, I think anytime you let white people get their hands on something that is to better and elevate Black people, it's always going to be like, it's going to be tampered with a little bit. It's going to be tampered with a little bit. Candace Owens talked about how, I can't even think of her name. Was it whatever her name was, the lady of the Black Lives Matter movement, how she kind of was like with the president and all these different things. And like, I just think whenever you just have to be mindful of that. And I talked to you guys about that false sense of allegiance. Like, one of the things that I'm learning for myself, just from the things that I've experienced in my own life, and, these are real experiences. Like, I think a lot of times social media, sometimes it can kind of create this allure of like something that's off-putting, right? So it kind of gives you like an idea of something, but you can't see it, you can't feel it, like it's not really real. You don't really know if it's real. You can't really like decipher what's real. And I'm gonna tell you right now what's real, because I know a lot of people are struggling with this. What's real is your reality. What's real is when you wake up in the morning and you live where you live and you see the four corners of your room. That's real. What's real is the people that's around you. That's real. And I just think too often right now the message is teaching Black people to hate themselves, teaching us to hate the system. To hate what we know, to hate our ways in which we grow up, to hate our customs and everything. But white people are capitalizing off of it to the max, bro. They're capitalizing off of it to the max. And so I don't really I don't really get down with a lot of things. Like, I don't know. And I think to myself too, like, a lot of people talk about how smart they're, and, maybe it's one of those things to where I think it's just easier to just be like, you know what, I'm not going to pour back into the community. I'm not going to give back to the community. I'm not going to show up in such a way because it's just easier. I think about the times where people come and do like a free seminar, or they want to try to come and give free information. And it's never really in the cause of like free, right? Like, they'll come, they'll share, they'll gatekeep most of the information. And then guess what? At the end of the seminar, they tell you can pay $300, $400, $500 to join a course, and then we'll teach you more information. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. And it's funny to me because as much as you have so many hurting people try to come and attack Black women and Black women progressing and like obtaining wealth, it's just funny to me because Black women are the main ones who always give back. Black women are the main ones who pour into the communities. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, I'm not really here with this whole like ignorant talk about masculinity, all this stuff, because Black women, we need resources. If anybody should have the authority and the power, it is us, because we're the only ones who are going to use it in a positive way. Like, I think to myself sometimes, like, dang, like, why don't some people give back in certain ways? And, I don't necessarily think that every person who got money is smart. I really don't. I don't think every person who got money thinks like that. And I had to realize that so many people can talk about how they came from certain things, how they had certain things. And one thing I know for sure is that when it comes to like patriarchy, this is so real. Black men benefit from patriarchy. They benefit in certain rooms because Black men kind of have this sense of like, I don't know what you want to call it. I really don't know. But I know that there is a certain like privilege that Black men get. Like, it's just real. Like, they can go in certain rooms, or whether they want to be Uncle Tom or whatever people want to call it, like, that's just do with that if you will. But there is a certain benefit that Black men get. Like, it's kind of like the trophyizing of white women. You know what I mean? And I remember talking to somebody who was just telling me like, oh no, I haven't really had that many racist experience. And he was like doing well for himself. And it just was very interesting to me. And so I feel like for myself, it's so easy for people to just kind of like, I don't know. When I just think about like giving back, and I think about pouring into the community, I think about educating people. Like, I think that that's always been 100% just like a Black woman's job. And I think Black women absolutely deserve and need capital to do that, because nobody else is doing it. You know what I mean? Black men really do. Like, I think that we really need to take a look at this, because there are a lot of Black men who get out of these communities, and it's self-hate. It's self-hate. They can't they don't want to talk about where they come from. They don't want to be reminded of that. They hate it so much, instead of just being like, I own this. This is what made me me. Like, look at what I was able to overcome. And it could be Stockholm syndrome. I don't know. I just know that so much of it is rooted in self-hate. And I think that there's like just a vast majority of people who are struggling with that. There are definitely times where you feel like, you know what, like, I just want to come on here and say something positive. I want to come on here and say something uplifting. But man, it's like the racial tensions are really high. And as much as I try to ignore it, and I try to, do all these different things and try to just like speak positively, it don't always be given that. Like, and I'm not even speaking negatively at this point. I'm just raising awareness and like somewhat of enlightenment. But it makes a significant difference. It really does. And I definitely think that there are some people who benefit from it, and I don't think that Black women are one of them, So, yeah, that's what I think. I think we kind of see that too, like with the rise of interracial dating, like, I don't know, bro. Yeah, it's just interesting. It really is. And I'm really happy to see a lot of Black people kind of waking up and realizing like what is going on and what is happening. And, my thing is, it's always just a lack of disrespect. It's like you'll be with a Black man, but you'll disrespect a Black woman. Like, I think that's weird. And you have so many white people who want to jump on TikTok and pander to Black people in general and talk about race and things like that. But it's like these are the same ones who are at the job causing your brothers and sisters to fall and to stumble. You know what I mean? I just had a situation where there was a woman who literally went above and beyond to try to extort me because I asked a different person. So there was a conversation we were having in the classroom, right? And everyone knows that sometimes when you have white people in positions of leadership, right, one of the things that I had to look at objectively was like, I don't want to pull from racism, right? So I peeped that this woman was just an insecure woman. Like, I'm like, I can just tell she's insecure, she's threatened. And it's funny because I was doing nothing but being me. And I want to talk about how these microaggressions and how just like hypervigilance on a black person. Now, mind you, it was only me and another black girl in this room. So there's a lot of focus that is then placed on you, and there's pressure to perform in a sense. And for me, I wasn't really given into that, because at this point I know who I am, and like, this is just me. And I think for myself, so I do encourage entrepreneurship in regards to black people, because you got to know that like what you put your hands to will prosper. So for me, I'm always walking with a state of humility, while I build and do the things that I do, but I also know who I am. Right. And what I mean by that is like, I didn't go through a traditional like educational system. Like I've had my experiences in my life. And so with those experiences, I was able to be self-taught and somewhat self-educated in a lot of ways. And so I'm not walking down with my head down and my tail tucked between my legs because I'm in a room with white people. Right. Like that's basically what I'm saying. Like I don't really give into white fragility, and I'm not being anything other than my beautiful and radiant self. And so I noticed that this woman was really just like hyper fixating on me, a lot of microaggressions, and a lot of just like her own personal insecurities. So anyway, there was a young woman in the class who had experience in regards to the conversation we were having, and there was a question I asked this young woman, and my trainer, my manager at the time, she felt triggered. Now, mind you, I could just tell, because anytime someone would ask a question, anytime that people would want to interject in the conversation, she had a really, really hard time receiving that. And to me, I didn't look at it as a race thing. I looked at it more so like, this woman is so insecure, like she has to take up all the space, right? There's nothing wrong with taking up space, but when you have to just always be the one to have something to say, you have to always be the one to just have the whole room on lock. Like that's insecurity. I would watch her as she would walk around the room, and she would make, certain commentary about certain things, and, how she would talk to people. And I'm like, white people have this thing to where it's like, if they feel threatened, anytime they sense a threat in their environment, they have to kill it, right? They have to execute it. They have to get rid of it, right? Like they can't handle that. So for me, little old me, honey, I didn't even know that was the vibe, right? So I'm in this space, and I just noticed that there was just like, she started like whispering to a colleague of hers. And this is my thing too, when I talk about racism, like it's always this rallying of a white people. Like one thing about it, they're going to stick together. One thing about they are going to stick together. That's why it's just like, bro, like, I don't know. I just think, okay, let me just fast forward. Let me finish the story. So anyway, this white woman goes above and beyond. She pulls me out of the classroom. She's like, I'm the manager. If you have any questions, you need to be coming to me. Like, you don't need to go to her. You need to come to me if you have questions. At this point, I'm so taken back, because this has nothing to do with the curriculum. This has nothing to do with anything. Then she goes on to pretty much go to head of security, let them know that I was causing disruptions in the classroom. She spoke to HR a lot about me, about some attendance things, and it just was this whole thing. And it's like, that's what racism is. Like, security had me at the front desk trying to escort me out of the building, like literally about to call the police, because I'm just trying to get an understanding as to like what is happening, right? And you have all of these people who are just like sticking beside each other, and this in the faces of injustice. I think that was the first time where, for myself, I realized that, dang, like I'm really a victim to racism. I had experienced racist situations, but I think like I've always kind of just like triumphed. And I think in my younger years, I didn't really have the understanding to, to kind of like move around in a different way. I think when you have situations like this, it's very unfortunate. And then on the other element, I will say this. I think at this point in my life, because I have my skills and I have my abilities and I believe in myself, I think that when it comes to racism and like racist altercations, it's just so beneath me. Like, I don't deal with people like that. And like, if you don't have to, I highly encourage you, just don't even deal with people like that, because it's ignorant and it's so beneath you. But this is a real thing. And so for me, this is the reality. Like, This is literally reality. So I don't know. I guess I just wanted to get on here and kind of bring some awareness and shed some light on it. I know that it's so heavy for Black women in the workspaces. I'll never forget when I shadowed a news anchor. I noticed a white man just, looking at this beautiful Black woman who, she did have curves. She had beautiful natural curly hair. Like, just looking at her with such disgust. I remember when I was addressing her and I was telling her how happy I was to see her at the news station, because to me, I'm like, representation, it just matters. Like, I'm just giving this lady her flowers. And I noticed that everyone in the room was white, and they looked at us, and it was almost like immediately no, right? Like, and I can tell that it wasn't received well. And she kind of like interjected, and the conversation just pretty much ended. It's very unfortunate when you have these situations, and I don't know. It's like, for me, it's always just a matter of like bringing awareness to the table and just kind of like sitting in a state where we just kind of like having conversations. And I don't know, it makes a difference. But one thing I will say too, on the opposite end of this, I know a lot of people can hear this stuff and see this stuff and get defeated. You got to look at your track record, and you have to be willing to try and like put your best foot forward. I don't think that everybody's racist. I think at this point, like, come on, like, we're far too intelligent to even assume something as such. But I do think that we have to kind of take a step back and just kind of realize, like, just as we love to talk about the dysfunction in the Black community, just as we love to talk about our childhood trauma, just as we love to, pin the tail at our brothers and sisters, we have to realize that white people really do have a psychological wiring in their brains from racism as well. Black people were not the only ones that were affected by slavery and by all of the oppression that we received. White people also have literal and major psychological abnormalities. Okay, like, it's not normal. And so you have to be mindful of that. Like, you have to be cognizant when you're dealing with that, because it's real, And I would say, for anyone who's out here trying to do something with your life, you're trying to start your business, you're trying to do certain things, connect with people in your community and be resilient and work really, really hard. I know people are saying things like, oh, if you work hard, like, some people are still aren't successful. Well, it's time for you to kind of look around and be like, okay, what is it that I can do that can be a little bit more fruitful? Like, what is it that I can do that, will maybe bring me a sense of peace and joy? And maybe don't set your goals so high when you're first starting out with the things you want to do. Like, maybe take time and also know that things take time, So I'm not really here for a lot of people jumping on like the capitalistic wave and, talking about why we can't get ahead. And I'm not saying that we can't get ahead, because I think it's very evident that there are so many systemic and just like psychological barriers and just so many things in the way of that. We were literally redlined, right? Like, but I don't want people to stop trying. I don't want people to give up, and that doesn't mean that you need to strive for a corporate job or anything like that. That just means that you need to find what success means for you and tailor it to your success and such. And, any person who jumps on on a podcast or any platform in the name of Black people, trying to educate Black people who ain't speaking to Black people, is a problem. That you're a problem and you're highly miseducated. So I think we need to think about that as well. Like, when we talk about who you reach and who you talking to, like, for me, it's the people in the hood with me. Like, I'm talking to them. I'm not like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not out here trying to talk to people who are already in certain spaces. And you have to understand that when it comes to college, everyone who has a college degree is not smart. College has a very specialized curriculum. It's a one-track way to wherever you're headed, right? So there's not this array of like knowledge and all those different things. Like, it's not what you think it is. And so sometimes when we see successful people, we think that they're smart, we think that they're aware, we think that they're Uncle Time. No, they're just brainwashed. They're just like anybody else. Not every person who is in a position to provide for themselves and maybe have like, let me just say appearing to have nice things, right? Because one thing I know for sure is when it comes to money, we all kind of been brainwashed to think that only white people have money and like white people don't wear fake stuff and all this different stuff. I can tell you right now, just being in retail, honey, yeah, white people also, yeah, they use Afterpay. Yeah, they return things. They buy things on credit and they return it. You know what I mean? So recognize those things. And I think just like moving forward, it's just really unfortunate because every time we talk about race, we talk about racism, it's one of those things in which it's a conversation that can't be had. There's so much defensiveness that is centered around it. And anytime that a Black person opens up and kind of has these conversations, we're always flagged in just so many different ways. And it can be very discouraging, it can be very, very frustrating, it can be very debilitating. I definitely am learning for myself that when it comes to conversations about race, politics, the whole nine, it is so important to be mindful of like the verbiage that you use to convey the message. And I'm still working on tailoring mine specifically, but I do my best. I do my best. I'm definitely still cultivating that, just because it's not really to be received well. It's more so just like I kind of want to refrain from using harsh language, right? Like I kind of want to refrain from being like super harsh, but it's like it's the truth. You know what I mean? Like it's just the truth. And so yeah, I don't know. I think it's important to have these conversations to let people know that they're not alone. It definitely can very easily feel like the cards are stacked against you, especially when you're having these experiences and you're on TikTok and you see, and like, you know what I mean? Like it can just be very triggering. But yeah, I definitely think a lot of people want to be oppressed. Everybody want to be Black until it's time to be Black. It's so funny to me. We don't get to take it off. We don't get to go home and take it off. We don't get to wake up one day and decide to be different. We don't get to, we don't get to move around like that, So I want to leave you guys with this, though. I want you guys to know that wherever you are in the world, you can always have a sense of peace and a sense of gratitude within yourself, as long as you're being true to you. Right now, it's getting more and more difficult. I think that like authenticity is just kind of being choked out of us, right? You see this with like so many different forms and organizations and belief systems and just everything. Like it's just one of those things to where it's like it's shifting. So you just kind of have to be mindful and like hold on to yourself, like hold on to your truth, hold on to who God created you to be, hold on to your individuality. I know we kind of talked about like the rise of hedonistic culture and how it has created us to be in a space of isolation, but I do think that there's some benefits to it. I kind of feel as though the more people get to sit with themselves and realize who they are, the better that things could possibly be. But yeah, and just know too, like, have faith in yourself. Everything that you do will prosper. I look at my life, everything I've ever done is, it may not have been the biggest thing, right? Because I'm still in the exploration phase of my life. And I think that's also important to realize within yourself too. Like, when you have past experiences in your life and you feel like, man, like that wasn't successful, or man, that wasn't this or that wasn't that, you have to look at your life and be like, you know what? I was in the exploratory phase, and for me to be in an experimental phase in my life and still see the fruits of my labor, just within the short spurts or the time and the duration in which I was just trying to figure things out, that to me lets me know that what I put my hands to, like, it'll prosper. And it's not always about money per se, it's more so just about enlightenment. It's so important for me to just let people know that they're not alone, like, I don't know, I just think that like just because Black families, like, I just listen, I don't see how y'all can grow up in it and not want to pay it forward with anything that you have. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get that. I really don't get that. Like, I think that if you don't have that mindset, like something is off, something is wrong, something, you know what I mean? Like, there's a disconnect because, bro, I sit and think about the kids who just at home all day by themselves. Mama's gone, and like, they're sitting on their phones with TikTok, so they having experiences in the classroom with their kid. With their teachers. I've had students tell me that there were white teachers calling them the N-word. You know what I mean? And nobody believes them because they're like, oh, this is you hear the conversations, oh, these bunch of hood rats, these like, And so I think for myself, I just have so much compassion for that. Like, I understand it, like, no matter where I am, because I know who I am, and I'm not ashamed of who I am. Like, everything that has made me today, like, I feel so blessed to be able to come out on the other side and to have intelligence, to have wisdom, and to have, you know what I mean, like, such flavor and favor, okay? Like, it just, I don't know, I just think for myself, it just makes a huge difference. And I do think a lot of times, It's much more peaceful to be in a space where it's like, I don't want to talk about racism, and I don't make that the premise of my life in every conversation, but I do think we got to kind of wake up and realize, like, yeah, no, TikTok has definitely created that, because, one thing about white people has always been, if they ever feel threatened, if they feel like they can't have something, if they feel like they don't possess something in their mind psychologically, there's a switch that goes off that says, take it. You can take it. Right. And so I don't know. I just think that that makes a huge difference. And I've been impacted by it greatly. And, I think it definitely affects some people differently. I feel like as far as a geographical standpoint, like it depends on where you live at demographically, like, what kind of state you're in. Like, if you're living in New York, if you're living in LA, like, I'm not going to say you're not experiencing racism to an extent, but you're probably not, because there is inclusivity. And that's been like the premise of those states. Right. And then you have like Texas, right, southern states. Like, so you're probably not experiencing it. Now, I'm not going to say it doesn't exist in these places. I'm just saying that there's much more inclusivity versus if you're living in like a rural area that is like predominantly white, you know what I mean? Or highly conservative. Like, I just think it makes a huge difference. So a lot of people say that these conversations are distracting. I've definitely heard some authors who I thought that, were pretty like radical. I thought that they were they're labeled as like prominent authors and things like that, but when it comes to conversations about racism, they say like it's distracting and things like that. And for me, I just don't get how anybody could turn a blind eye. Like, I think that people gravitate towards spirituality as a form of like escapism. I definitely had times in my life where I was really grounded in my spiritual essence and I stopped trusting my intuition, right? Spirituality kind of paints this beautiful, wonderful picture that like everyone has good towards you. And I'm not saying that they don't, right? I'm not saying walk around and be like, oh, everyone is wishing bad towards me. Like, I think that's faulty thinking and that's dysfunctional, right? Because that's not true. But I think that when it comes to like jumping on this spiritual wave and this sense of collectiveness, that's false, because everyone don't love you. Everyone don't have the best intentions towards you. I've had many occasions in my life where I walk into situations, I'm the happy-go-lucky person, and I'm thinking that this person is picking up on my energy, right? I'm thinking that this person is vibing with me. I'm thinking we gelling, and then they go off and they remind me that, oh, like they're reminding me that in those situations, they're taking advantage of my niceness, right? They're taking advantage of the fact that I'm a kind Black girl, right? So now at this point, it turns to something different. Like, and so I don't know. I just think that don't ever negate wisdom on your spiritual journey. Don't ever negate your intuition. And no matter where you go in life, don't forget where you come from. Like, it's nothing to be ashamed of. What are you ashamed of? People like, don't be afraid to don't. People be saying like, people say don't forget where you come from to keep you stuck. Nobody's trying to keep you stuck. We don't really care. I don't care. I don't care what you do with your life. You know how many people are out living their lives right now? And I realized too, like, so much stuff just ain't purpose for everybody. Like, it ain't purpose for everybody to speak the truth and do certain things. Like, not everybody is real. Not everybody is, you know what I mean? Like, everyone has a different purpose. Everyone has a different walk in life. And I think that's completely fine, But I don't know. I just say wherever you go in life, carry yourself with a sense of pride, like you're so much more than what you were told. Like, you're brilliant. You're literally brilliant, and you can do anything you put your mind to. And if you're hard working, the fruits of your labor will show. And you just got to keep sowing some seeds, and like it'll show. It'll come through for you. Trust and believe that. But like this false sense of allegiance and putting yourself in situations where because you think that this is what you got to do, or you think that this is what you should do, like, I don't know. I just feel like it don't really seem to be no return on that. It don't seem like it's ever been, and we look at other people and we want to say like, oh, this is this one person, or oh, this is this one person. But we don't realize that there are so many people who are like part of the 98%, and that's not their truth. Right. And so I just think it's easy to enter into spaces a lot of times and single out one specific person or one specific thing and be like, okay, this is the model that I'm going to have for my life. And everyone's got a different path. Everyone's journey is unique. So yeah. So I'll leave you guys with that. I don't know what I'm going to call this podcast episode, but peace. I've never really felt comfortable with white people stepping into pulpits and talking about like Christianity and things like that. And at this point in my life, I'm so concerned for my people, because one thing that we don't really understand is a lot of the historical context, and you have to understand that God is a spirit. God lives within us. God is just. And you have to realize that from a historical standpoint, white people have literally manipulated and deconstructed the Bible in so many different ways. And, I'm someone who reads my Bible faithfully. But one thing I know for sure is that to be moving in this world, like, everybody's loving, anybody who claims to be Christian can be trustworthy. That's not wise. That's not wise. You know what I mean? And so you have a lot of times, like even for Martin Luther King, because I referenced that, you have to realize that like Martin Luther King was a Christian. He was loving. He believed in love. And you have to realize how not everybody operates like that. Not everyone who says they're a Christian is loving. Not everyone. And people, want to oftentimes really hold Black people to this, to being more loving, to being all these different things. And I think a lot of times it makes us smaller. It still protects white people and white fragility at the end of the day. Like, and so I don't know, you guys. I think that it's just kind of like food for thought at this point, but I'm seeing the rise of it, and I'm seeing the dangers of it, and I'm seeing white people weaponize off of it. I'll never forget, I went to a mega church because I was just merely curious. I said, wow, it's so crazy how they're building all these mega churches up in the city. But, it's been pastors that's been preaching in the hood, and they've never got that amount of money to rebuild a new church. Like, we still sitting in church pews from, like years ago. You know what I mean? Like floors peeling. We still in the basement with the brown lighting. Like, it's crazy, And so to me, I feel like that's a way bigger issue. But if a white man decides that he wants to be a Christian and come out and build this mega church where there's no laws about anything or whatever they be in there teaching, which I'm about to share in a minute, then it's like, oh, he goes and gets the projectors and it's this whole big thing. I couldn't believe it. I was so distraught and so taken back. And I think that God had me in that room for a reason. I 100% believe in God. I 100% believe in God. I believe in loving people and doing right and all those different things. But I believe that God moves through your spirit, and you gotta be one with God. You gotta have a relationship with God. Like, you gotta know that God is sovereign and like, yeah. So anyway, I'm in this mega church, and this is my first time coming to the mega church. I'm so blown away. When I say my mouth drops, like I'm not even kidding. When I walk into at this point, in the concert. Girl, I was up in a concert. Girl, I was so shook. I said, oh, this is in Cincinnati? Like, what? So I walk up in here, and huge mega church. And I'm sitting here, I'm really amazed from all the cameras. I mean, you got like, it's like a stadium in here. It's crazy. So anyway, the pastor goes on to say, and even if you were a slave owner, he was a slave owner, but Jesus forgave him, and that's okay. Jesus, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, that's what he said. That's literally what he said. And like, it probably wasn't verbatim, but he definitely said, like, if you were a racist, if you're a slave owner, like, Jesus forgives you. Like, it's okay. Like, yeah. And, I think for myself, this is the problem. This is the problem, because it's like, again, it just goes back to protecting white fragility and just kind of penetrating white supremacy at the end of the day. Like, it's a power construct, to be honest. I don't want to dissuade Black people, but I just need y'all to know, like, just recognize the system in which we're in. Okay. Like, I'm not here to dissuade you. I'm not here to tell you to not go after and do the things you want to do. I'm not here to tell you don't go to college. I'm not here to tell you don't do any of these. I'm just saying, be keenly aware. You have to be highly aware. Please be highly aware, especially today with the rise of these mega churches. Wake up. Wake up.